Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So the girl called me and she's like, hey, so you like Magical Mystic? She was like, you use their products? I'm like, yeah. She was like, what would you recommend? I'm like, okay, what are you trying to do? She's like, well, I want some money. And I'm like, okay, girl, we can get some money. I'm like, okay, first, do you meditate? And she was like, And then I was like, okay, do you journal? And she was like, And I was like, okay, well, first I would start a meditation routine. And then I would start journaling. I would get 5 journals. And she, in her head, was thinking, what the fuck do that got to do with manifesting some money?
Right.
And I was like, well, you know, she wasn't just a random person off the street. So to me, it was personal. Like, I would love to have seen her grow and stuff like that. Not just manifest a simple $100 for a bill and have like some extra money left over or anything like that. And then keep having to do that small magic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because once you start to go within, you will learn the things you need to learn, hear the whispers that'll make you the millions of dollars or large sums of money for minimal effort. But until you go within, even if you manifest some money, I might have manifested like a few clients to do readings for when I first started doing magic.
Right.
So I might have needed some money. I was in nursing school, so I might have had to call in some money. And my sister, Jay, she would tell me, like, you know, you can't be desperate. She would say, how much money do you want to make? And then you look at how much money you want to make versus how much your product costs or how much you charge for your services. And then from that, how many clients do you need? So say I needed 5 clients, I would call in 7.
Okay.
Just in case. So I would say, I would set the intention that my post, or even as I was making a flyer or something, I would set the intention that it would reach a certain amount of people, 7 clients, so that I could make the quota that I needed, and then maybe have like a little bit of extra. And then after you set the intention, I kind of just would release it at that point, and then I would just get clients after clients. And then nobody teaches you, well, they do teach you. Nobody listens when they first started doing magic, like to kind of release the outcome or to be grateful and take notice on how it comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes the danger about manifesting money when you need it instead of just consistently doing money work is that if you need it and it's not coming as quickly as you need it to, you'll lose faith in your magic.
Right.
Instead of seeing that, like, okay, I called in $2,000. I just randomly got $500, which was not $2,000, but it was $500, which means now I only need $1,500. And then I got $200 here. I found $100 on the ground. Little stuff is going to come, but it's not going to come in a lump sum. And it's like,
yeah,
if you need $2,000 at once, it can, but sometimes it doesn't. It's going to come in the form of least resistance. That's the path it's taken. So if, say I needed the $2,000 for one thing, I needed the whole $2,000 for one product or one service or whatever I was getting, but it came to me in increments. If I get $500 after I asked for $2,000 and I don't understand that was a part of what I just asked for, and I spend that $500 on something else that I need that's not related to what I had already asked for, now when I finally do get the other $1,500, I'm like, oh, I didn't get what I asked for. And then that seems that'll jade you too, especially when you're used to other things being in control of your life. And now you're in control, but you're not making the decisions that you're supposed to make to stay in control, you know? Yep. So now you blew the $500 and you like, oh my God, nothing good ever happens to me, cancel. Like, you're just pouting, you're not being grateful, you being actually a jerk because you fucked up the church's money. Like, it's interesting.
Yeah. So when, say it's coming in incrementally, you talked about how it's coming here with the path of least resistance. Does that incremental coming in have anything to do with the person that's doing the work.
Definitely, because the path of least resistance will look different for everyone, because everything is energy.
Yes.
And magic is simply energy manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody is doing money magic, but they don't work, they don't really have streams of income, it's like the money is trying to flow that way and it's blocked because you have no stream of income. You had a stream of income, the job could accidentally overpay you.
Yeah. The mundane is part of it. It's almost like a balance.
It is.
Yeah.
It's very much so a balance because they work with each other, not against each other or not through each other. They work together, like in harmony, and that's what people forget. Some people get into spirituality and they get too spiritual and they forget that you have to be both. You have to maintain practicality and spirituality as one.
Yeah. I was there's a Toni Morrison has a quote where she talks about that, like she's talking about black people, but she says that black people are very practical people, but at the same time there's an aspect, a supernatural aspect to black people, and it's not like one is a contradiction to the other. It's like both of them are enhancing themselves.
I can definitely see that, but it's like black people were forced to be overly practical because they were always put in positions to just barely be able to keep what they had.
Yeah. Because
they weren't allowed to do magic, or because they weren't allowed to explore the supernatural parts of themselves, even though they've always been there. But we have never taken advantage of them like in the world today.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think during slavery, black people were using magic all the time. But when we were emancipated, and like those white educators came from the North to teach us, it was like they were trying to push, you need to get away from that idea. You know, if you want to move upward in America, you need to get away from that type of thinking as far away as possible.
That is interesting. I always tell people, though, I feel like it just was something that kind of got lost.
Yeah.
I do believe that during slavery they were doing magic, but I also believe that they weren't able to speak as freely. So as far as teaching goes, it wasn't something that I could necessarily teach my child, but I could show my child. Yeah. And kids do as they see, not as they're told. So what I noticed was that my parents and aunts and uncles wash their houses, clean their houses with pneumonia. My family has very spiritual practices. Everybody's family does, though. Like their traditions and things like that. They're usually rooted in some type of spirituality. They never explain like, oh, we wash the walls with pneumonia to cleanse the energy of our house, because I don't believe that's why they're doing it, and I don't believe they set intention why they're doing it, because it was not something they were told. It was just something that they observed and learned as they lived in these houses, because most people were raised by grandparents.
Yeah.
And then that 80s generation, that's where a lot of stuff got lost in translation.
Yeah.
Intentionally.
Yeah.
Because before that, though, black people were almost unbreakable. It was like, you would tear us down, we would build new communities, new cities, and have wealth. And people like to forget that part. It's like, but black people were doing the thing, you know what I mean? And I don't think it wasn't involving magic. I think it just wasn't talked about as freely, and it wasn't understood.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then at some point, it was just like, not even it's not working, but most people were taught about this God and everything like that. So although they knew some of the magical things, it was too much to try and convince my kids in this new country, in this harsh environment, how to be magical.
Right.
All I can teach you is to believe in yourself, to not lose your willpower. I can only try to instill things in you that they're gonna try to take from you naturally.
Yeah.
Even Harriet Tubman, because have you seen that movie?
I haven't seen it.
The lady was basically a psychic. She would have spells where she would have visions, and her visions would help her would guide her.
Yeah.
If that lady wasn't a psychic, and to me they just put it all over the TV, that lady was psychic. And people can downplay that, but that's not small.
Right.
And everybody said it was because she got hit on the head with a rock when she was younger. But that just tapped her more into herself, if anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, stuff is just really interesting, though. But I think after so many, like, letdowns, Black people had to become more practical. Because all the setbacks, we just had to keep getting more practical and more practical. Because now we're trying to build generational wealth. We're trying to build freedom. We're trying to build all these things off of sand. And so, because they convinced people at some point that they were like climbing up a hill but still losing, it was like the hill was getting bigger. They would keep climbing and the top would keep getting further away, it seemed like. Because every time Black people would advance, they would get pushed back, which would make them have to become more practical in order to kind of try to get through the current challenges now. And nobody was teaching magic like they're doing now. So it wasn't like I had a mentor. I had somebody who could help me see my way out of this metaphysically, to transcend above this construct, essentially.
Right.
So it's like I feel stuck. I feel like I need my kids to do better than I am doing. Like that was everybody's goal, to get their kids into a better position. But not because, and they had no time to think about anything metaphysical or spiritual. Yeah. And they made them believe it was silly and fool's play and things like that, which will only push them more into practicality.
Yeah. That's something to think about.
Mm-hmm. And because you got to think about it, a lot of religious people who try to step away from religion, one of the first things, or one of the early things that they have to get past is that God is a jealous God. Because that's what we're taught in the Bible.
Right.
So how can you believe in yourself enough to get yourself out of something if you are supposed to know that you are God? Mm-hmm. If we were made in the image of God, then what else will we be other than gods? Yeah. But people can't, you say this to people, they be like, oh, what? They start looking around. They want to back up. Like, bitch, you about to get struck any second. And it's like,
yeah, I designed this shirt.
You did?
Yeah.
Don't be jealous. I love it. That's so funny. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. The first time I did Money Magic, the IRS sent me a letter saying that I could get an additional $500. So I got that, and I was like, well, first of all, I started being like, now, was it a coincidence? Mm-hmm. You know? And then I was like, well, like I'm playing with the idea was, had I not done that ritual,
would I have still gotten it?
Would I have still gotten it? You know? But then I started asking myself, because it wasn't like I asked for, it's not like I petitioned a particular amount. Mm-hmm. So I got $500, but I started asking myself, was it possible that I could have gotten more? Mm-hmm. You know, mm-hmm. Was 500 a type of cap?
Oh,
you know.
Yeah, that's
right. Mm-hmm. So that's why I started thinking, well, in general, regardless of what kind of magic you're doing, as time has gone on and I've done a lot of practicing, it made me think, there's a way magic kind of points you back to yourself.
Mm.
Like it goes, like it was like when you saying go within.
Yeah.
There is something about the magic that makes you sit with your own energy.
Mm-hmm.
What were you about to say?
You know, they say like how a lot of people are getting into manifesting these days is like you attract energy. What is it? Universal law, but they say it kind of wrong. You know what I'm talking about?
With the law of attraction?
The law of attraction.
Right.
So, but what that really means is you attract the energy you are in.
Yeah.
So if you're in a certain energy, you can, M says this a lot, you can't bullshit energy.
Right.
Because
right.
all is energy. So you can pretend like people say all the time, oh, I want $1 million. I want to be a millionaire. I want all this money and this, that, and the third. But if you ask them, like, what would they spend it on? If you ask them, how would they use it? If you ask them more specific questions, they start fumbling. They do not know.
Right.
And you can say it all day long, but the thing is, Black people have to realize that we have a lot of subconscious blocks that were naturally instilled into us.
Yes.
A lot of people think that a certain amount of money is greed. I didn't think money was the root of all evil, but I thought if you had money, you couldn't be home. And if you was home, you didn't have money, type of thing.
Right.
Which was not true. And then I say a lot like we're computers. So I had a session with the subconscious surgeon, and this was like actually like a pre-session. He was just seeing what was going on. And he told me, he said, you have a financial ceiling. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
That threw me off. And thank God he told me when he did, because if he hadn't told me when COVID came, I wouldn't have made as much money as I made, because I would make a certain amount of money and then I would quit and I would stop working for a while until I felt balanced again. But like, that's mad extreme.
Yeah. There are some practitioners that call it a set point.
Oh.
It's like they talk about something in your subconscious. It's always related to culture. Like it could be like the songs you sing or the stories you hear, like the movies you watch, that make you believe that you can only go so far. Yes. Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't understand what's after that point.
Yeah.
You know, people don't like change. They only like to go where it's comfortable. They like to do what they've seen be successful.
Yeah.
So other things are kind of concerned. It's like this nervous feeling. It's like, am I allowed over there type of thing?
Oh.
You know, it's like the people I know
don't be over here.
The people I know don't go that way.
Right.
So it's like, what does that look like for me? What does that look like for the connections that I've had all my life? What does that look like for my future if I make it too far? Will I still I won't be able to go see my friends or my family no more because they gonna think I'm changed. But in reality, I have to maintain a new energy now because that's what I want.
Yeah.
To get something you never had, you have to change who you are, because clearly in the current state, you may not be compatible with what you're asking for. And why is that? And that's where shadow work comes in.
Right.
Because once you understand, because I genuinely feel like when money sometimes gets like restricted for certain periods of time, if it's not Saturn, it's your oversoul. It's an agreement that you already made for yourself to not let it ruin you.
Yeah.
If you're a certain energy yourself, depending on the energy that you carry.
Yeah.
I don't feel like humans have this problem. I don't know if I took it too far. But I don't think like Gaia's babies have this issue. But I feel like if you are from anywhere else, then you may have an issue where you aren't allowed to take certain paths because you predetermined that you would not go too far into destroying yourself before you were caught. And even if you're not saved by placed into a field of gumdrops and lollipops, you will not be able to ruin yourself. With people having too much money at one time can ruin them.
Yeah.
people will self sabotage.
Yeah.
And imagine self-sabotaging as a millionaire. How do you even explain that?
Yeah.
And people don't think of that. They just like, oh my God, I'm not a millionaire yet. Like, this doesn't work, as in Magick. And it's like, no, you didn't do your work.
Right.
Because if you did your work, you would be able to meditate, sit with yourself, and figure out where you are off balance and not in harmony with what you're asking for. Because there has to be an imbalance.
Yeah. All right, Winter. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Of course. Thank you for the conversation, too.